gals, Jake, Fat Fabs, again, back on our YouTube channel. Behind me is my personal 1961 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. A little bit of back history on this car. I originally bagged this car for a customer in my parents' garage when I first started out, probably somewhere around 2002, 2003, I think. Back then I used to put old school stickers with my phone number on the windshield. And I told the guy back then, I was like, man, I really, really like this car. The car was white, had tuxedo interior on it back then. And it was just a super clean car back then. Just needed a paint job is all I thought it needed. But I told him, I was like, if you ever want to sell this car, call me. Like, I'm really interested in having this car. But, you know, back then I was probably 22 years old. I couldn't afford it probably even if he wanted to sell it. But long story short, fast forward 21, maybe 22 years, that gentleman called me and said, hey, I'm moving back to San Antonio. I'm looking to sell the car. And I couldn't get out of the shop fast enough to go look at the car and see a car that I haven't laid eyes on in over 20 years, in 2 decades. So I was able to purchase a car. It was right before SEMA 2021, I think it was, because I had the black dually, the murdered out dually with 30-inch Ford Giottos on it. And I used that truck to pull the trailer on its maiden voyage. On that dually's maiden voyage, I hooked up the trailer and went over to Middle City, probably about 20 minutes away, and was able to load this car up on the trailer and purchase it and bring it back here to the shop. So it sat for a little bit. I'd already discussed with Mikey from D-Tab Customs, Downtown Auto Body in Shawnee, about doing a paint job. We had built him a Corvette chassis, and we decided that I wanted him to paint this car. And I asked for a driver quality paint job. And Mikey, knowing me and my stuff, he said absolutely not. He was gonna make it a really nice car. So they had the car about a year, put a beautiful paint job on it, probably one of the straightest black vehicles I've seen in a long time. I had all the chrome redone on the car. I had the interior done by SD Tint and Audio in Shawnee. They share a shop out there with D-Tab. I think he's changed names now. I'll have to look up and correct his name. He's got a different name now. His name's Sean Dunn. Anyway, they've done a full red interior. The 2024 dually that we just sold to Beto on the gas, that dually was built to emulate this car because of the black with the red guts. That was the whole reason for that dually. But now, so fast forward, had the car, it's been to a few shows, nothing crazy. I've had it at LST and a few others. And the motor finally let go. The original 390 let go on this car, and it would still run, but it made a hellacious noise from the bottom end, just a whole bunch of knocking. So the goal was to bring it in and do a quick LS swap. I've had the motor for a while. I've slowly started piecing the parts together. Another pulley kit from Phil at Twisted Images. Thank you, Phil, again. And we've gone with Resto Mod Air on this time. So I want to do a quick LS swap with some air conditioning to keep the car on the road driving and on the show circuits. My daughter, Kaylee, drives this car from time to time to shows when I drive the Chevelle or whatever the case is, and she really enjoys the car as much as I do. We bring the car in just to do this quick LS swap, and this is when it turns into a snowball. That as nice as the paint job is and the interior and everything else, and we were gonna do a little bit of work on the firewall when we do the air conditioning, and then Sean is up my ass about, we need to be building nicer shit, blah, 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 blah. So fast forward, we pull the body off the frame. Yeah, sure, it's gonna be easier to put the LS in there and everything else, but then it turns into, we should powder coat the frame, and we should do this, and we should do that, and so now it's completely snowballed into something it never was intended to be. But I started to agree with him that if we're gonna powder coat the chassis, because the chassis is rusted and looks like shit, but trying to find shit for a 1961 Cadillac is really hard, and if you do, it's really expensive. So ball joints and bushings and body mounts and all that other stuff was just really expensive. So I took it a step further myself and threw it up on the frame jig and cut the center section of the frame out, because I didn't want to have to go through a factory gearbox, factory tie rod ends, bushings and ball joints and everything else. So we did what we did on the 66 Lincoln. We jigged it on the table, we cut the center section out, and put one of our 67, 72 C10 front frame sections into the factory chassis. So now we've converted to rack and pinion. We have newer ball joints, new bushings, everything that's readily available in our shop, in any part store for that matter, is gonna be on the front end of this car. And then Frank grabbed a hold of the rear end. We did a little bit of a C-notch into the rear end of the frame, and we rebuilt the wishbone, ended up using a different ball joint in the top, because that's what the way they come from the factory. We rebuilt that, and then rebuilt lower link bars out of 2x2 and got rid of the factory bushings that way. And using all 9/16 bolts now instead of the original half. So Randall has been kicking ass on everything underneath the dash. So if we're gonna build a firewall and put air conditioning in the car, I don't want brake boosters hanging on the firewall. I don't want the factory steering column hanging out the firewall. I don't want any of that. I want it to be nice and clean. All the AC lines and heater lines are gonna be hidden over on the passenger side. And we've done the same brake pedal assembly with the reservoirs as we did in the Chevelle. So everything's gonna be mounted underneath the dash, and it's gonna be a 180 brake system. And we'll just have bulkheads that come out on the bottom for the brake lines. Other than that, I mean, when in Rome, you might as well Willwood brake it and throw the big Willwoods in the front of it. And then it's about to go to powder here in the next few days. So the motor and transmission's already mounted in it, and the new upper control arm tabs and everything else. We end up having to tweak a little bit on our 6772 to make this work, and new radiator, all kinds of, like, everything. The car's gonna be new, other than the sheet metal, just kind of like the Chevelle is. So hopefully you see this one pretty soon. Our goal is to have it debut at Slamboree. It will be in that D-Tab Customs booth there at the show. We got to go have a few little touch-ups done on the car as well once we do get it running and driving. So stay tuned for that. I won't give away everything that we're going to do on the car underneath the hood, but it's going to match the rest of it, and should be a pretty nice car when it's all said and done. And then I've got to call up Beto down at Auto Gas and say, hey, you want to buy this car to go with that dually? So maybe I can talk him into taking us with it. That way they can stay together. Till next time, take care. All right, so hello boys and girls, guys and gals. No, I probably shouldn't say boys and girls, that's probably not. That sounded like fucking Mr. Rogers. All right.